It's so empowering to understand how marker experiences in your life have shaped your artistic voice. And with that knowledge comes a truly authentic confidence in your work. Hey everyone, welcome to Whole Artist Mastery. I'm Marianne Mitchell. So many of you who have seen my videos know that I've been a professional artist for a very long time, around 40 years. And you know that my greatest passion at this point in my career is sharing all that knowledge with all of you so that you can grow on your path as an artist. So if you like what you see and you get something from what I'm sharing, you can help the Whole Artist Mastery YouTube channel grow by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much. So many of the ideas that I share with you in YouTube land, as well as at WAM Wednesday, which is my free conversation monthly, which you have access to if you sign up for the mailing list at wholeartistmastery.com, come from incredible conversations I have with individual mentorship artists who are working with me. Of late, there's been a common thread in the conversations that has to do with what we're doing in our lives, how little things show up along the way that have everything to do with the work that we're making. So what I'm doing today is sharing snippets of the last conversation I had at WAM Wednesday, which was June 25th, 2025, where I speak about both the origins that I've recently discovered in my particular artistic expression and how you see that in the work that I'm making today, and then how the idea of our voice and our intellectual understanding of who we are as a person comes together with our intuitive expression. That's really the foundation of our artistic expression. So I hope that you'll find this very informative, and I'd love to hear your comments after you finish watching the video.
Well, let me go back to myself. I'm going to start with myself, as always, right? Start with yourself. This morning, I was reading I don't know, was it Hyperallergic? If many of you read Hyperallergic, or something about oh no, it was Daily OM, which is Daily OM. And it's a very interesting sort of daily way to support you in many different ways. And so this morning it was talking about neurosculpting. So maybe some of you have heard of neurosculpting, but I went and checked it out. And basically what it is it's a combination of meditation and brain training. And the whole idea is and for those of you who are into neuroscience, you're welcome to correct me, but it seems to me that it's about a merging of the left and the right brain, the meditation and the brain training. And it specifically talked about this is a way to use concrete and abstract thinking. And I thought, well, why we do that all the time in the process of making abstract art. So that got me thinking about what I'm so passionate in my own life and working with all of you has to do with this balance between really between the yin and the yang, the concrete and the abstract, the logical and the intuitive, the dark and the light. You could go on and on and on, but about these polarities coming together to create harmony. And so as I thought about that this morning, it occurred to me that that connected to an experience I had a couple days ago where I was showing somebody that I'm working with these little sketchbooks. They're Holbein sketchbooks, and I will put a link in the email I send out tomorrow. They're my favorite sketchbooks because they have a cardboard back and front, so you can flip them over and use them on your lap if you want. and the paper's really nice and hefty. And many of you know that I lived in Japan for almost a year and studied in China. And I was just out of art school, so I was doing a lot of sketching. And so I came across, as I was thumbing through these notebooks, which were a combination of journal entries, lecture notes, as well as drawings, I came across some notes that absolutely blew me away because I could have said exactly the same thing today. And I mention this because I think it's such a great illustration of how, if you track throughout your life things that come forward, marker experiences, happenstance things that you wrote when you were a teenager or whatever, things that come up in conversation, it's astonishing how that shows up in your work. And the painting there, which is born out of the same need to create harmony within polarity. And I'm a great example of somebody who I can stand confidently now, 40 years later, knowing, seeing all these years, how all of these things add up to what I am doing now. And there's an inherent platform, a foundation of confidence that I'm owning, even in saying that. Now, many of you who I'm working with, you are where I was 30 years ago, and I'm doing this to help fast track it for you. So it doesn't take you 30 years. But I wasn't able to stand with the kind of confidence I have today way back then. And it was, it's only been maybe 10 years, let's say. And so I want all of you here today to take that in. And the more you know yourself, the more you see all these different threads of all these different aspects of who you are and how they tie together, the more your work will make sense to you. And then once it starts to make sense from an expressive point of view, it's that knowledge of expression that gives you your visual language.
So at this point in the discussion, someone commented on how cerebral the discussion was and wanted to understand how you juxtapose the cerebral aspect of thinking things through in a painting with the intuitive nature of making a painting. So my answer to this question is my description of what I call the 4 phases of making abstract art.
I think many of you are familiar with what I call the 4 phases of making abstract art. And that description came out of my search to be able to answer questions just like that. How do you do what you do? How do you make abstract art? Because the way I've developed as an artist, it's always been a combination of the cerebral and the intuitive. I had very cerebral education, both in high school, elementary, high school, and in college. And yet I'm a very intuitive person. So I was able to have, and yet I think my brain probably does, we all do both. But my work has always been born out of this conversation between the thinking, logic thinking, and the intuitive expression. And so in trying to answer the question, how do I do what I do? You start in reckless abandon. It's the most freeing thing. It's like going into meditation, except that I think it's even better. You get to throw gorgeous color out and you can be completely free. It's the one time you don't have to, nothing is wrong. Everything's fine. It is what it is, there's no judgment there whatsoever. The only judgment is when you yourself are looking at it and thinking, well, this sucks. This is not what I expected. This is not what I wanted to do. These are not the colors I wanted. But that's on you. And so that's why I always say to everybody, you have to start with 0% expectations, truly. Like, whatever you have to say to yourself, to say, okay, I'm checking the world at the door. The only person who's going to judge me is me. So why do I need to judge myself? Let's just have fun. A lot of you call it play. You can call it whatever you want. It's playtime for adults, reckless abandon. And, but it's impossible, I think, to live in that state forever. So eventually you come out of it. And then it's time to, what I call, critically analyze what you got there. And that's when the cerebral comes in. And you've all heard me say there's a big difference between judgmental criticism and critically analyzing. If you come in with judgmental criticism, you're going to kill the voice inside you. If you come in with an analytical eye, okay, what do I have? What do I dislike? And I think we all have that ability to some degree, to sift through what you like, what you dislike, and what you might want to do next. And so and then the third phase is, well, how do these two things work together? And that's where it comes in, where you have to do this dance between thinking and feeling, and doing what you doing what you think you need to do, and at the same time letting the intuition lead the way. So the phrase that comes to mind when I think about that phase is, I know what I want to do intellectually without knowing intuitively what's actually going to happen. You go through this process and you create work that's born out of intuitive expression and intellectual structure, shall we say, compositional structure, which equals intellectual, and color and mark, which equals intuitive, emotional expression. When your painting has those two things completely integrated through the physicality of your medium, there's a response to your work across the board, generally speaking, that's much more across the board than when one of those things is weaker than the other. I want to leave you with this, that back to my own personal story, that I graduated from college. My college boyfriend said, let's go live in Japan. So I said, okay. So we went and lived in Japan. I had no connection whatsoever to Japan. And, but I also didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So why not go to Japan, kind of thing. I had been taking, Chinese philosophy, or I think they called it Oriental philosophy back then. So there were little pieces of awareness that I was already interested in the Asian way of thinking, but I had no idea what the Japanese culture was like and what it was founded on. And as I look back on where I am now and that time, I just think it's astonishing. And I'm saying this because maybe some of you have this experience too, that I went to this place with no connection, no sort of, yeah, let's just go to Japan. And it ended up being a place that so matched my own way of seeing the world, or my perspective, that I didn't even know I had. And so the whole concept of yin and yang and polarities coming together felt so right to me, in a land that was so foreign to me at the same time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes that completely unknown, spontaneous experience ends up being exactly the match for who you really are. So look for those experiences too. And as you go from this conversation, raise your awareness, your attuneness to spontaneous conversations that you have in your life that may hold a clue to your continually growing and understanding of your voice, which, by the way, should continue until you are up there as opposed to walking on this earth. Be wary of the person who says, I got it all figured out. I am not one of those people who will say that to you.